Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. That's a bit of a Truman Show reference. If you get it, great. If you don't worry about it. Moving on rapidly. Today we're going to look at a feasibility study across 2 floors. I'm going to present you with a scenario that I was recently presented with, how we had to look at both floors a bit differently than usual because of the size of the floor plates and the amount of space that the landlord partner in this scenario was willing to allocate to co-working under a management agreement structure, which meant we had to look at not only the way that we spread out the product mixes across the floors, but how we could share a floor with another tenancy, which in this case we kind of turned into more of a spec suite offering. So that would be leased out by traditional tenants, complemented by a co-working space. And we wouldn't be responsible for the filling of those spec suites. And spec suites, depending on where your market is just imagine, half a floor or a full floor of pre-fitted out larger suites, not so small, like maybe 30 to 50 person size, so larger than you would have in a traditional co-working space. And landlords are doing that in some markets to just get tenants in for like 3 years at a time. So it's almost the bridge between traditional co-working and traditional leasing. There's this spec suite product offering emerging. So I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to show you what it kind of looked like on the floor plan, just rough sketches. But then recent conversations I've had have benefited from me really explaining the desk density calculations and also the meeting room theory. And by that I mean, hey, what does this 6 square meter per workstation or desk density actually mean when they're trying to visualize it on a floor plan as a landlord? Or how do you know how many meeting rooms to put within the co-working space? Is it a per member thing? Is it depending on the size? So I'd like to focus on those 2 things while I describe what's going on, okay? So here on the model, I've got, as you know, I like to kind of focus on the key performance indicators always because it tells the story. It's almost like you reverse engineer when you do feasos like this based on the space you're working with and even what the partnership looks like. So we ended up looking at around 1,500 square meters, okay? And it was across 2 floors, but each of the floors were about 1,000 square meters. However, in this scenario, we would get all of level 1, but we only got half of level 2. And that's because the landlord wanted half of that level 2 to be allocated to a spec suite or more traditional tenancy scenario. And in this situation, because the core is colored in the middle, it almost turned out into a perfect split down the middle, right? So we would have 1,000 square meters and 500 square meters on level 2. And then it really had to get thoughtful in terms of how we designed the space and even staffed it and programmed it, because the landlord wanted us to service the spec suite floor, okay? So here, call it spec suites. And then the other side is the co-working, which we'll kind of get into. So that turned into a quantum of about 1,500 square meters. Normally, the desk density ratio, even around that side, you could probably get away with 6 square meters per workstation. However, for the sake of this, I bumped it up to 7, even when we were doing the analysis, because the floor plans weren't, unfortunately, as perfect as these square rectangles I've drawn. There were some issues with the facade, certain pillars, so we couldn't get that optimal amount of density within the space. So so that means there's 214 desks, right, workstations across the 1,500 square meters. But let me explain what that 7 square meters per desk per workstation actually means very quickly. If you understand this because you've been on the channel, you can skip past this. If not, please listen. That doesn't mean there's 7 square meters around every workstation physically, right? So it doesn't mean there's a desk here and then almost you've got this radius around that 7 square meters. That is not what it means. It's basically a methodology that every operator and market, even the white label ones like what I do, have a general understanding of what number they can allocate to their workstation density. Meaning you can come at them and say, we've got 4,000 square meters, we've got 2,000, we've got 3,000, and they divide that total NLA by that number. In which case this is 7 in this scenario. So 1,500 square meters divided by 7 is 214 desks, because this 7 accommodates not just for the area of the office, it accounts for front of house, it accounts for circulation, It accounts for amenities. It's almost like operators, once they really understand what their product offering is and they've done enough of them, they know their number. Like we work, less so recently because they're changing their product offering. And especially in a post-COVID world, all operators have gone a bit more generous in the amount of space they allocate to a workstation and how many desks they cram in a space. But you would see workstation densities as low as 4.5, especially in Asian markets. Even in Sydney, Australia, we saw them as low as 5. But a lot of the more hospitality-oriented operators that are trying to really touch on a premium kind of area, they're edging closer to even the 8 to 9 square meters per workstation, because it generally means they've got more area for the amenities. Okay, so that's what the 7 means. It doesn't mean there's 7 around each desk. Frankly, when you get inside an office, it's probably 3 square meters per workstation inside the office. But you don't divide that across your whole NLA, because then in theory, you've just got a whole NLA just of offices and desks, right? That's why the 7 includes all that other stuff. So we've got 7 here. Because it's a smaller site at around 1,500 square meters, I'm going to be slightly more conservative aggressive. It's a term I use sometimes. It's still conservative, but slightly more aggressive of a 12-month ramp up. And I'll keep it at 85% occupancy. If it goes above 2,000 square meters, that's when I start going, okay, it's going to take 15 months and maybe the mature occupancy isn't 80%, it's 85%, it's 80%. But in this case, we'll stick to 85. In terms of the headcount, I think we can benefit from 2 full-time people servicing this. So maybe I'll keep the community manager. I'll get rid of the concierge, because you'd probably get a community manager concierge role going on there. So you'd like to have the budget for a slightly more expensive person. Here we always have, as you know, once you get your workstation density, we've got your private offices and your open plan desk orientation. It's normally a 90 to 10 ratio, 9 to 1. Right, you want more of those workstations within your private offices because they're sold 6 to 12 months at a time, longer term, blah, blah, blah. When you start getting a bit more sub-regional and away from the CBD, you could probably afford to have more of those open plan desks because of the demographic that you're catering for. However, I wouldn't count on them for reliable sources of income, because you'll be selling them month to month, not longer terms with the offices, which are normally 6 to 8 persons up to 15 person style offices, right? Now, the meeting rooms, this is the interesting one, and I've kind of already got it set to what I think is appropriate. So when you've got the meeting room theory for me is simple. It's kind of split into 2 things. Meeting rooms, I go from square meter NLA. Phone booths, I go from something else. Per member, but it's a bit different. Okay, so under a 1,500, I'd say even 1,000 square meters to 2,500 square meters. I always want, and it's already set in here, 1 times boardroom. So maybe this is like 16p. 1 times 8 person meeting room. 2 times 4 persons. And maybe you get like 1 times podcast or some sort of cool room. Okay. Then you've kind of got 1 or 2 of each of the key things. I don't like going more than the boardroom or the 8 person because they're hard to fill. And majority of the time as an operator, you're giving them away for free as some sort of meeting room credit or hours, right? So that's why when we go back to the model, the meeting room occupancy is set to 15%. I'll set it back up to 22%. I'm pretty confident about that, especially when in this particular scenario, it was in a building that was like 2 floors out of a 25 floor asset, right? So there was a lot of tenant customers that we could service, which made me feel a bit more comfortable with the meeting room occupancy, pushing it up to a 22% occupancy. That being said, I still wanted to keep it to the 1 boardroom, 1 8p, 2 4p. And because you're within your design and the circulation space and the amenities, you've got a lot of public areas where they can have booth meetings and informal ones. That services the 1,000 to maybe 2,000, not 2,500, 2,000 square meter demographic. I'd rather be in hindsight, see the meeting rooms go gangbusters, where not only are they using the free credits, but you're selling the shit out of them, that you need an extra 8 person and maybe an extra boardroom, and then just thoughtfully design your floor plan so you can flip some meeting rooms because they're situated close to the boardrooms or something like that into a meeting room. There's nothing worse than having too many meeting rooms. They're only at like 10, 20% occupancy. They're not generating the dollars per square meter that you need for them to earn their keep, even though they're still an amenity, right? Now, the phone booth is a per member thing for me, right? I'm trying to remember. We'll do the math together real quick here. I'll do it in this messy. So if we got 200, can't hear me like that. If we've got 214 members and we're saying we sell it at 85%, so we've got 181 members. As you all know, when you're in flex and co-working, you're not going to have all 181 members in the space at any one time. I'd say you'd have about 60% of them at any one time. So you've got 100, call it 100 people in the space at any one time. I'd feel comfortable with having, that's the way I do it. If you've got 100 people, how many phone booths would service those? I'd say 6 to 8. So you go total members, and remember that's 80%, 80 to 85% of your total workstation. Then you take 60% of that number, because they're not all in the space at the same time, to account for flexibility. And then you look at that number. So in this case, if it's 100, I think call it 8 phone booths, because phone booths are expensive. Right? And phone booths are how long is a piece of string? You can put in 20 and everyone would use them because they're there. But I think 8's a solid number. And then that changes obviously if you've got 120 people, 140, maybe you add another one. But again, I think design using this as a foundation and then add as you need to. You don't need too many of them. So if I go back to the model here, hopefully that explains the meeting room and the density allocations. Now, when it comes to the floor plan, with a 7 square meter density situation, the reason it was closer to the 7 is because level 2 is a bit weird, right? Say the entrance is here, and the entrance is here and that's how it was split, because you could split the foyer where they could go left or right. You'd have your front of house here, obviously. I wouldn't touch this facade at all for offices. You could almost have your meeting rooms potentially in this corner or the other. But then what I would do is wrap the facade, as you all know, around here, let's say that, with private offices, PO, 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 because you want maximum amount of natural light, views, all that to get that optimum. You could have meeting rooms here. Here, this is where you can go for your event space or some sort of thoughtful amenity specific to your location. I can't give away what we did too much for this particular asset, but it was targeting a certain industry, right? So it was targeting media and one other industry. So because of that, we really thought about that top right corner. What could we do that they can't get anywhere else that caters for their particular industry? And I think you really got to think about that. And then obviously, because you've got some areas here, rather than put more offices there, this is where you'd put your open plan desks so that you've got some areas that things can breathe. And then you've got maybe some more opportunities if you really need to wrap some internal offices there. Actually, that looks a bit gross. I'll get rid of that. But you'd have some internal offices wrapping around. Right, so you still kind of have, because you still need to optimize how many private offices you can fit there. Now, level 2, when you kind of go up the stairs, we had stairs on this side, I believe, had a staircase going up. That's theoretically, that's where it's going to go. So it comes up here. Because we're servicing the spec suite customer on the right side, we wanted to be able to, not this just to be offices, right? So even though we had offices kind of wrapped around this area here, we wanted this area to be something that the spec suite customers could come over and use as well. So not only if you had your, call it here, there were like, how many did they have again? Call it there were 3 large tenant customers here. Imagine if they were able to leave their spec suites through the joint circulation and go into this amenity area here where they feel like they're welcome. It doesn't feel like they've gone into some random tenancy. Then they've got the stairs to go downstairs here to meet the front of house. There's an element of serviceability there, because if the stairs can come up here as well, then your community manager can service the spec suites. There's that element of hospitality at play. Okay, so we did a bunch of that. Let's see what the numbers look like. The rent for this was a bit lower. Outgoings was a bit lower from memory. We've got our rent escalations there. The landlord under this partnership was going to pay, what does the dashboard look like right now? I mean, it's looking okay. Okay, so if you draw your eyes to the bottom, the target rent was $650 per square meter per year. Obviously, we're not hitting it in year one because we're ramping up from 30 to 85% occupancy, but we had some relief there. And then from year two onwards, we're at a slight premium. We're $13.51 over the rent that's been escalated by 3.7% rent escalation. So we're in the green. And then when you look at the landlord's capex, what was the capex set to? 2,200. I think that's more 2,300, if not higher, in this market. But it was a warm shell handover. The reason why the capex, even though they're injecting, scroll down here, sorry everyone for jumping around. The capex in itself was 3.4 million. However, the tenant incentive in this market, they were willing to give 1.7 million. So I know it's a bit of financial jiu-jitsu, but when you're looking at the ROI for the landlord, they're not looking at necessarily as this is my maximum capital being thrown in. So I want the ROI on that, because when they do a traditional lease within the Australian market for this scenario, they would have given a tenant incentive anyway to a traditional tenant. Okay, and they were pretty stoked to look into this, even though it's not a traditional tenancy and a management agreement, because we're doing all of these things to cater for level 2, the spec suites, which would help them actually anchor those tenants and reduce downtime overall for their asset. So I'm seeing a lot of landlords be a bit more holistic in their thinking that way, as long as you've got the numbers to back it and not some bullshit spreadsheet. You're really showing the thoughtfulness around the product mix, how it works. You know, we've got 12 sites now under our belt. My team across APAC that we've delivered, still running or has been come to the end of their contract. So we've got some data to show that we can do it. This is where you play around. I won't go into the profit share, rev share, all that kind of stuff under this partnership agreement. I've got other videos you can look at for that stuff. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. I think it'll do really well, because also it's only 1,500 square meters, right? Now, if you want to look in the description, there's a free version of this model that you can download for free. If you wanted the detailed one, you can always reach out via the link in the description as well. Just let me know, or we can book a call and have a bit of a chat. But hopefully this was helpful. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? No, I think... Is that recording? I think that'll do it. Recording as well. Yeah, so I really appreciate you watching if you made it to the very end. And in the comments, if you've got a particular scenario, because I do these videos, like I try and do one every week. If there's a certain topic or scenario, whether it's floors or building or some type of deal structure you'd like me to explore, just write it in the comments. And then it's kind of like a free bit of information, free consult, because I'll just do a video based off that, and hopefully it helps you with your thinking. But again, thank you for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.